And I wasn't thinking this when I was setting this up, but that actually makes a perfect segue for my thing of the week. The manga series, The Villainess Stans the Heroes, playing the antagonist to support her faves. Which, boy, that is a first off, that is a mouthful of a title, but also, boy, that's a bit of a transition from a serious Vietnam War movie starring Mel Gibson to this nonsense. Which the analytics tell us, whenever I talk about weeb crap, the audience tunes out, but I don't care. I've had a bad couple of weeks on the whole, and I read this, and now you have to hear me talk about it, or you don't.
Yes, indeed.
So, I got this as a Christmas gift, and what I'm going to say right now is that my one friend must really think I love this concept, because I was going through my backlog and I realized that he had gotten me a similar light novel for Christmas last year too. It's also interesting because it's in the Isekai subgenre. Okay, so I'm gonna set the larger what this subgenre is, and then I'll get into the actual specifics of this one, like where it is interesting and where it's not interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, we all know Isekai has swallowed Japanese culture, probably because a lot of young people don't see a life for themselves in this world, so they imagine, hey, what if I just, woke up somewhere else with superpowers and was amazing?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
And in the we usually on the occasions we talk about isekai shows, well, we're talking more about the ones that are focused at the teen boy audience or the male audience. So you have things like Rising of the Shield Hero, which, despite its flaws, is still like the Citizen Kane gold standard of isekai shows, which is telling.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, yeah, I'm here in this other world, and I'm going to collect a retinue of cat girls or what have you. But it's like it's a generic RPG thing. The version of that made for women is based on what they call otome novels or otome games, which are basically dating sims that are some sort of pastiche of European nobility. It's like kind of like it's like the people who are into that would really love things like Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, and another one of those would be what was it? My next life as a villainess, all routes lead to doom.
Yes, I don't know if that was the first of this series, but it was the first time I became aware of it.
Yeah.
And I think it must have come significantly earlier than this one, because one of the amusing progressions of the isekai genre as it's become more generic is like, and at first, I remember reading the light novel many years ago for Shield Hero, and I initially gave up on it because I was turned off by the whole gaminess of it. Like, as soon as everybody in that world had a heads-up display, I was like, okay, this is unrealistic. I'm out.
Yeah.
But like they made the effort. They showed him going to the library, picking up the magical book. They explained the mechanisms that they used to bring him to that world, why he was there, dealt with a little bit of his surprise, and there was always the talk of him eventually getting back. Whereas nowadays, I've literally seen anime where the main character literally wakes up in a new body in the woods somewhere, goes, oh, I must be in some sort of isekai thing. They just move on from there.
Oh, jeez.
And I make that comparison because where my next life as a villainess, just to bring up that show, because that's the main one I have to compare it to. This is what those characters look like. I just happened to pull it up because these series all have very long mouthfuls of names, so it's I had to look it up to make sure I got it right. For that one, they made a point that of showing her childhood and her growing up with these people to show how having a nice person instead of an actual villainess changed everybody's lives.
Yeah.
Where this one, oops, spoiler alert there for our last series. For this one, the Villainess Stans the Heroes, they dispense with that very quickly. And in fact, they kind of jump to like what I would have thought it would be like chapter or volume 3 or 4. So this one, I forget the main girl's name. It's Elusa, something like that. She is kind of different than a lot of the protagonists I've seen for these types of stories. Because, okay, so my next life as a villainess. The joke of the series is that because her character was always doomed and like nothing but bad ends for her.
Yeah.
She was trying to be nice, but it's like she had never seen anything about the butterfly effect before.
Yeah.
So the idea that people liked her and she wasn't actually doomed anymore never seemed to occur to her. She wasn't the brightest girl, okay?
Yeah.
This girl seems to be intensely aware of it, but she's also like very. It's like she wants to have the distance from her favorite characters, who she translated as faves in this one.
Yeah.
Which I'm guessing is the Japanese word oshi, which in fan culture, it's like a word that literally means push, as in like a sumo wrestler pushing. So it's like, oh, they're my oshi. They're the ones I'm pushing for.
Yeah.
But that's just a guess because I know a little Weebanese, if you know what I mean. Like there's certain keywords I know, but
yeah.
But she wants to keep a distance from them. So like even though she has that vampire guy in the back as her butler, and he is clearly into her, she's like, no, I want to admire all my faves from afar.
Yeah.
She's like the type of person who, like their favorite actor could show up and want to make sweet love to them, and they would say, no, I just like to admire you from a distance, no touchy.
Yeah.
But she is very familiar with the butterfly effect. She has figured out through trial and error that there's certain key events that will happen no matter what she does. So she kind of had to do some evil crap in the past because it was doomed to happen anyway.
Yeah.
But the show is not actually all that concerned, or not show. The manga is actually not all that concerned with her past behavior. It's very quickly brushed under the rug. And maybe that's why they kind of skip past her childhood, because they didn't necessarily want to show her doing evil crap.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm kind of glad that my friend spontaneously got me 3 volumes of this. I've read 2 so far, because the first volume is almost entirely set up. Because they not only have to set up the quick isekai thing, a bunch of books fell on her when she was at home and she woke up in her favorite game.
Oh.
They just brush past that very quickly. They have to establish that while she is a villain, because of her charm and her subtle support, the heroes like her. But she and her vampire guy have gone off to a new city to live, where she's been slowly setting up a new life out there. And then she ends up helping another one of her favorite characters. And it's interesting that her favorites don't seem to be based necessarily on any sort of sexual interest, because like there's this bunny woman samurai who she calls one of her faves that she wants to help. So what would I recommend this? I think you have to be in a particular mindset for it. It's definitely better than I was expecting, especially because the first volume was very much, like I said, it was all set up. So I was getting a little concerned that it wasn't going to go anywhere good.
Yeah.
And I would say it's going somewhere kind of interesting. It's just at this point, it's like a high class fantasy thing. It's like dealing with the high class underworld of a fantasy setting.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say that, as always, I kind of wish that it could just be the straightforward story instead of having to have the isekai element. But I get why it's there. It does break my immersion slightly, but they do a good job of. There's a tension there between her and the vampire that, like, will she eventually give in to his advances? Will she eventually see herself as part of this world rather than just being a somebody with some distance? That's probably its most interesting element, is that, like, when you're a fan of something, you, unless you're completely delusional, for certain that it's like you can't reach through the screen and become best friends with Goku or whatever.
Yeah.
You might fantasize about it, but if you have any sort of grip on reality, it's just like a fun delusion. And it's like she, despite living for 12-ish years in this world so far, she still fundamentally sees it as separate from herself. So will she eventually just decide to become this woman? In fact, as well as in just like pretending to be her. So that tension makes things more interesting and entertaining for me than it usually would be.
Okay.
Now, I'm not necessarily saying rush out and buy a whole bunch of copies of it. I'm saying that this seems like the type of show that will get animated at some point. So it's probably going to hit Crunchyroll. Give it a watch then.
Yeah. I was just thinking that too. I'm like, I wonder how long it'll be before it gets an anime. Probably not that long.
Yeah, so I'm not the target audience for these otome isekai things. So maybe what I like about it, the fans go, ew, why doesn't she just get on with the hot guy? What's this making me think about how I'm separated from my faves? Gag.
Yeah.
Because Lord knows that I've had discussions with people about different gamelit and whatnot, enough to make me realize that, I fundamentally am not on the same page as people who like this.
Yeah.
And that's okay.